on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
The more you plan going into a holiday, the better your end result's going to be and the less stressed you're going to be. And I know it takes time. That's what allows you time with friends, family, to not be stressed. And it even gives you the confidence to know it's all going to get done.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Toombs, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Y'all, I am very excited for today's guest. It is a very close personal friend of mine. I call her Martha. She's my personal Martha Stewart. It's Caitlin Neal from Host for the Holidays Instagram account. She is a masterful entertainer, and that account gives you recipes, all sorts of guidance on hosting events. And I wanted her to come on today to give tips and just share ideas with you as we're going into the holiday season about how to be a good host, how to be a good guest, no matter what walk of life you're in. If you're living on a college campus or if you're in your own home, we're going to cover it all. What's up, Caitlin?
Hey, Liz. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me today.
Yes, I'm glad you were able to come on. I think we'll have a lot of fun and useful things that people can walk away with when we're done.
Good. Yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely a topic I'm super passionate about. And, I really started Host for the Holidays because I wanted to be able to help people and kind of share what I know. So this is perfect.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that. You've always been a great hostess. You're a wonderful cook, but choosing to then post it regularly and try to help people is a whole different ball of wax. So really, what was the catalyst for you?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I originally started because I had just observed, really starting in my 20s, that a lot of our generation, we're both elder millennials, we're the same age. And I had noticed that, where previous generations, they had kind of passed the ball to the next generation and younger generations would begin hosting their families' holidays. I wasn't really seeing that happen in my friend group. And it's for a myriad of generations and family dynamics and all sorts of things like that. But what I wanted to really do was empower, primarily, women, people our age, to feel comfortable and confident hosting their holidays with recipes that are easy to follow, that are going to work every time and be attainable. But then at the same time, I also like the sort of ultimate versions of recipes. So I tend to test to what I think is the perfect version of something. And then that's usually what ends up getting posted.
Yeah, as you were saying that, the attainable, yes, the things you do are attainable. And you usually will take it to a bougie level, like caviar on potato chips and such. So just this way people get the full picture of you here.
Yeah, I do sometimes like to include, a caviar here, a truffle there. So yeah, bougie elements are always a fun thing. But definitely, I think there are a lot of options on there, whether it's recipes or hosting ideas or decor, that are definitely more on the budget-friendly side too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of your recipes, the green beans, I make it regularly now. And it's a staple at dinner or family gatherings. I make them all the time. They're just like good, classic, what I would classify as like kind of country or like home cooking green beans.
Definitely. So, and the green beans are funny because that has ended up being my most popular recipe on my Instagram page. It's the one that I hear about the most often. And the funniest part about that is I like those green beans, but I don't particularly like green beans. It's not one of my favorites. But so I kind of made a version that I really liked. And a lot of my recipe influence, I know you call me Martha, you have for many years. A lot of my recipe influence is Martha Stewart. A lot of it is Ina Garten. I love her so much as well. And then a lot of it is really my family traditions. So that my family of origin, I have a lot of Eastern Kentucky roots. And so like that style of cooking, sort of Southern country style, is definitely a cornerstone of a lot of the recipes I write.
Yeah. So speaking of your family, growing up, was there a tradition or a specific gathering in your family that you looked forward to?
I was always a Christmas person. I loved Christmas most of all. But Thanksgiving, I mean, really, my mom always did a great job with holidays. My grandparents did a great job with holidays and making things special and memorable. And I actually remember we never lived in the same city as family, so we were always traveling too. So I didn't do that as much. Like when my son was growing up, and also ended up in a place where I wanted to sort of bring people to me. So that it was an element that was a little bit different. But I mean, I just think that a lot of care and thought went into those things. And one memory that I have that I'll always remember, my grandma Mackenzie, who is in Ashland, Kentucky, every year we would come for Christmas. My mom is the youngest of 14 brothers and sisters. She has 13 brothers and sisters. Yeah, a lot. So we had, needless to say, our family gatherings were quite large. And when we would show up at our grandmother's house, she had these old, like huge Tupperware bins, and there were 3 kinds of cookies: gumdrop cookies, chocolate chip cookies, and M&M cookies. And you would watch them dwindle over the course of the visit, and they would always go in the same order. Chocolate chip was gone first, then the M&M, gumdrop not as popular. So it's just, I think the little things like that are what make holidays really special. I mean, especially for kids and families.
I agree. I did not realize that about your mom. My mom she was number 5 of 10. And so same concept, right? Big family gatherings. After her parents passed away, she sort of took the baton and hosted that side of the family's Christmas. And very similarly to what you just described, would make gobs of chocolate chip cookies. And then she would make, we just called them jelly cookies. You may call them molasses cookies as well, where it's sort of like the ginger with the sugar, and then you do the thumbprint and then put the jelly in the middle. Those were always a family staple as well. Sweets are just the common theme that I remember.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was true for my family as well.
Do you have any fun or like disastrous events that occurred at a holiday, whether you were hosting or a guest, that turned out to be like a funny memory now?
Oh, I've got a couple. I just realized one I hesitate to share. This could be okay. I'll give you 2 stories. Okay. So I did have one where it was Christmas Eve, and I am notoriously careless about getting things in the disposal that shouldn't necessarily be there. I had, like, it was not even an hour before guests were arriving on Christmas Eve, and I had something was wrong with the disposal. I knew we were going to need it, so I called an emergency plumber. So as my guests are arriving, there's a plumber who ends up fishing my now broken, like, decorative teaspoon from Anthropology that had gone down there and hence been broken in half. So that was, but it ended up just being funny. I was just cooking around him while he was under the sink, and guests are arriving and the plumber is there and everyone is concerned and the show must go on.
That's funny.
And then, and I have another story where it was a Thanksgiving, and it was actually one of my guests invited 2 more guests, which I learned about, I think, 2 days before.
Well, that's bold.
And those guests happened to be vegetarian. Well, I'm a Southern cook. There is bacon in the green beans. It's Thanksgiving. There are casseroles with cream of chicken. Like, I would have planned differently. And so it ended up that those guests, I think, maybe had 3 things that they could eat, but they were happy to be there and it worked out just fine.
Well, there you go. I mean, 3 things is better than nothing. As someone who's gluten-free, there's a lot of times I could show up somewhere and maybe not be able to touch anything. So I count it as a win for the vegetarians.
That's fair. Yes.
Your disposal story, though, is very relatable because for many years, I didn't use my garbage disposal like at my last house because it was built in the 50s. And so they can be unreliable. So I usually avoided it. And then last year, actually at Christmas, I just chose to put an entire chicken breast down the disposal. And then the sink started to back up. And I was like, what's happening? Like, I thought this was supposed to work. And they were like, maybe not the whole chicken breast. You need to kind of put it down there in pieces. And so I'm back to not using the disposal now.
Yeah, my sister frequently scolds me for the things I put down. It's almost a game to me at this point. I'm kind of like interested to see how much it can take.
Just push the envelope a little bit.
Why not?
So if somebody says to you, I want to host a holiday gathering, like what's the first piece of advice that comes to mind?
First of all, I love when people ask me that question. And by the way, I want to mention too that if anyone ever has, my favorite thing is to get questions in my DMs on my Instagram page. I love answering people's questions and being helpful. It gives me so much joy. And so when I've had friends and things come to me and say that they're going to host for the first time, the first thing I say is start making lists and think about what you can make ahead. My entire strategy and really the cornerstone of executing successful holidays has always been around the planning of those holidays. And I fully realize that that's not how everyone's brain works and that might not be very natural, but I have found that the more you do that, the more you can just enjoy the day. And, you may have family or friends coming in from elsewhere, from out of town that you don't get to see all that often. And it just lets you be relaxed and enjoy everything. And so that is really the place where I start. And so when I talk about planning, I mean, I have a typed up list and now I just adjust it for, guest count. I've used it for years and years. I'll print it out like right before the holiday and like the week leading up to, and it's pretty detailed. And so I'll tell you what I do. It's not, people don't have to go into this level of detail, but what I start with is a countdown of what I'm going to do each day leading up to that holiday. So let's say if I'm going to make these pies on the Monday before Thanksgiving. I'm going to brine my turkey on Tuesday. And I just make a list of tasks. And then when I get down to the day prior, I'm going to prep as much as I possibly can, whether it's chopping herbs, washing vegetables, peeling potatoes and putting them in water overnight, everything I possibly can. And then I like to leave on the actual holiday where I'm hosting or the day of the event. I really like to leave sort of just fun, easy, throw together things like drop everything in the bowl casserole or something I put in the crock pot, things like that for day of. So that's really where I start.
I like that. I was laughing at the beginning when you were talking about a timeline and a list because you know that I also love lists, and I'm very similar in my holiday prepping because I don't want it to be stressful because to your point, you're potentially seeing people you don't see a lot. I don't want to get caught up in the minutia of like the logistics of the day and making the food. I want to enjoy the experience. And so doing a little bit each day does so much to spread out the work, and it makes it a fun experience instead of it feeling like super stressful and dreading it.
Exactly. Absolutely. And it keeps you organized. It's so easy to forget things. It keeps the people around you relaxed as you're prepping. You're not having to leave and go to the store. My son's in college now. So now more than ever, when he comes home, that time leading up to holidays, he's usually with me kind of before the holiday and then on. And I really want to enjoy it and be with him. I don't want to have to be like stepping out, running to the store. So, I start with a menu. From the menu, I make my list of ingredients. That becomes my shopping list. I have my guest list. I always plan out where everyone's going to sit. We can talk more on that later about etiquette, seating charts, like that sort of thing. And just make sure that, every day I'm getting through my tasks. And then this is the one that maybe could be judged as a little bit anal retentive, but I actually do a timeline of the day. So if it's something like Thanksgiving or Christmas where it's a lot of dishes and a lot of things that have to all come out hot together, it is down to what goes in the oven when, what I'm prepping. I even build in the timeline when I'm going to stop and get ready so that I'm not rushed. I have time to do hair and makeup and get dressed. And I build all of that stuff into the timeline for the day.
Yeah, I do that too. Also, I watched my mom do all of that. And so my sister and I just sort of have picked that up, and we'll work together, whether I'm hosting or she's hosting, and just sort of step into all of that on the day of. And there is such an ease about having that. So maybe it's anal retentive. I call it smart.
I like that. Let's brand it as that.
You were talking about seating charts. I'm curious because some people are just, come in, sit where you want, and other people have place cards. So it sounds like you maybe tend to lean towards the seating arrangement side of things.
I do. And it's not for the purpose of, boxing someone in. It really is for ease of the event, flow of the event. And so I really enjoy it. My family has come to appreciate it. And, and it also sort of ensures, when I have a bigger gathering, I have a dining room, there's like a kitchen area, and then I usually have sort of a secondary, folding table that I've made up with chairs and a tablecloth and all of that and set a table. And so I also kind of try to rotate and be really fair to everyone in that process, sort of where they sit, because I think in everyone's mind, the dining room is sort of like the main event. So that's just kind of a silly thing that I like to think about. But yeah, the place cards I think are really fun. And, when you especially have a bigger group and different locations, it just ensures that, immediate families can be seated together and just a good sort of flow to the seating.
Yeah, that makes sense when you have kind of a mixed crowd. I have started, when you talk about that separate table, I have kind of an open concept dining room. And so I will often bring in a folding table and make a tea using it in my dining table and add some chairs. Then I put tablecloths on everything so you can't really tell that they're different. And we're able to all sit together. But I have started to come to the side of having a seating arrangement, mostly because I just like making cute place cards and like practicing calligraphy. And so it's the like design and decor side of things coming out. And so they could pick them up and move them for all I care. It's just the aesthetic at that point.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think it's so fun. It adds to the table. And you can go on Pinterest. There are a million different things that you can do with place cards. And it's funny, as hostess gifts, often one of the things that people will bring me now is like different decorative place cards, like folding, self-standing ones, or like napkin rings and things like that, because they know that I appreciate that. It becomes part of the tablescape, and it's something I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything that you can think of for hosts that would be like low lift, high impact? Like if they're hosting for the first time or there isn't a big budget, like something that comes to mind that's so easy, but it makes a big impact.
One of my go-tos, I always start with menu. I love to cook. I'm extremely passionate about cooking. And I think that where, especially a lot of young hosts or just not very experienced hosts go wrong is feeling like they have to have a million dishes. It has to be elaborate. There have to be, 4 courses. And, one of the things I always go back to, what can you make ahead? What can you be doing ahead of time? What's something that you can do in a big batch? And so, something that's a crowd pleaser, something like lasagna as a menu. Something like that I did recently was I had done just a giant batch of, they're called Caitlin potatoes on Host for the holidays, just a great mashed potato recipe, not a healthy recipe, but a great recipe. And then I had just done short ribs, which I cooked in the crock pot all day. It works just as well as if you were doing a Dutch, oven and cooking them in an oven all day. It was one of the most low effort hosting experiences ever. And it was warm and cozy and fall, and everyone loved it. And then a lot of times, if you're looking at like a slow cooker maker head that also goes hand in hand with the type of meats you use for those dishes tend to be really inexpensive. So if you want to do, everybody loves a pot roast, a short rib, something like that, and you do it in the crock pot, it braises all day. I think that's just a really fun, easy, effortless way to go.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of that mass producing meal or dish. I guess I would say dish. So we talked a lot about being a host. Let's kind of shift to the guest side of things for a second. What do you think are like the top guest manners or etiquette tips that you would give?
That is such a great question. So, well, and I'm a little bit unusual in that when I host, I tend to like to do almost everything. Occasionally I do have a potluck at Thanksgiving. I have people bring things. So I may be a little bit unusual in that way. I would say, the first guest rule of being a guest is really ask what you can bring, ask what you can do, let your host kind of make those rules. One rule that I always follow when I'm going to someone's home is never bring something as a gift that causes the host to have to do extra work. So like while flowers are really such a lovely thing to bring, the host kind of has to stop their workflow, what they're doing as they're preparing, and, get them in a vase. And so I think if you bring something like that, you want to sort of have it done already. And then the other thing too is if you are doing a potluck kind of situation, I think it's a great rule of thumb to always ask the host, do you want this dish? What time do you want us to arrive versus when we're eating? Do you want it to arrive hot? Or do you want us to get there, socialize, and we're going to have oven room to reheat? And so I think as much as you can, when you're bringing food, always think about oven space, refrigerator space. You don't want to be in the space with the host, or you want to be there as little as possible and just kind of not interrupt that sort of workflow. Wine is always a great idea. And that's probably one of my most frequent things that I'll assign people to bring is wine or their beverage of choice.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. I love the thought of bringing them something that doesn't require extra work, because that is just showing that you really were thinking of them and considering them in your gifting process. So some hosts are going to be like you and I, right? We're going to handle it all. We don't want help. Just come visit, chat with us. All of that's good. Other hosts are different, believe it or not, and they would like some help. So how can guests sense from their host when to step in, or like, should they just ask, what can I do to help? Or how would you advise that side of things?
I think one of the best things that anyone can do, and this is something that I appreciate as well, is almost no one is going to say no to cleaning help. So I think that's a great thing to offer is just to read your host. If they're adamant, no, I've got it, or if they seem to be in the weeds, that they're struggling a little bit. And you see something, and it also depends on, how well do you know them? My sisters could come in and take a look at what's going on and immediately see like, oh, do you want me to set the table? Yes. Like that's a thing that you can do versus I'm not going to want someone to actually help with the cooking typically. So I think, cleaning is always welcome, or even ahead of time, to kind of lighten the mental load of the host and say, hey, thank you so much for doing all of this for us. I'm going to stay and do the dishes after. I think that kind of thing is always appreciated by everyone.
I love the tip about helping to clean up, because that is the most daunting task for me personally. I love the pomp and circumstance of getting it all ready and laying it all out and enjoying the food. And then when it comes time to clean up, I'm like, I'm tapped out of energy.
Oh, absolutely. And then, and I've done it, and there's nothing worse than getting up the morning after a holiday and you're like, the ravished kitchen and the dishes and all of that stuff to deal with. So yes, always appreciated.
I agree. So talk a little bit about ideas for college students, people living on campus, because we have a lot of house directors that listen to this too. Or if somebody's in a space that could be kind of limited on space, but they're hosting. So maybe it's a dorm gathering of friends or an off-campus apartment. Like, what are some meaningful ways that they could prep their space and still have a great hosting experience?
Absolutely. So I think that there are so many things that people can do. I would always take it back to, thinking about your guests and thinking about what it is that they may enjoy, and also realizing that you don't have to make everything homemade to host a beautiful dinner party or a shower or a party for friends, that you can really do things. I do a lot of semi-homemade in my hosting, or I'll DoorDash one thing and then I'll make some other stuff. Really big on that kind of blend. So, and I think, when you're looking at a small space in your hosting, there are a lot of things that you can do. There is no shame in clearing out this piece of furniture and setting up a table. I've been in small spaces before where I needed extra room, and I would actually set up a table sort of within a sectional and sort of have seating on another side. You almost every folding table you can get where it has adjustable heights. And so, that's something that I've done to kind of make a space function in multiple different ways. So now it's kind of lounge seating and dining seating. And I think that there are so many little things that you can do decor wise that are really inexpensive, like a big bang for the buck. We forget about little things, but like balloons and streamers. I've seen where people have done just a ton of helium balloons on the ceiling with long streamers coming down. This is something that's such a small investment and really impactful. I have a gathering coming up where I'm just doing a little bit of signage, and I'm actually going to be reusing some decor from some previous parties. And I think by sticking to really simple color schemes, like for instance, I've ended up with a lot that is black and white, and I've ended up with a lot that is gold, and a little bit that is pink too, with different like wedding showers and stuff. I keep all of those things. A lot of those things are really reusable, and it's just a really nice budget friendly way to, pull out and kind of like reuse decor and things to make something feel special.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The more you do this, the more you will start to kind of collect and gather and find ways to reuse it and reimagine it. And then that makes that initial investment very worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I saw a super cool video the other day. I think it was on TikTok, and it was talking about hosting in a small space and how you could steal extra areas. And it was either a sheet or a tablecloth, and either one would work. And they draped it over their washer and dryer. And then they took all like the serving pieces, or the like the plates, the flatware, the napkins, the cups, all the things that you would kind of gather at the beginning of the like buffet line. And they arranged it on different like tiers, like cake stands, and created this really cute space for guests to come and get those things and then go through the food line. Obviously, it depends on where your washer and dryer are located in proximity to where you're serving the food. But I thought that was really smart because it looked really pretty, and the tablecloth made it feel just like any other table.
Oh, absolutely. I love that so much. What a great idea.
Yeah, I thought it was really unique. And now I was like, that makes me want to just try it and see how it works.
Absolutely. Well, and even do you have outside space? Some of that obviously can be weather dependent, but just like thinking about all the different scenarios. I've known people who have cleared out and hosted in their garage because they've had so many people before, and it worked out really nicely. So yeah, creativity is definitely a plus.
Yeah, I think, again, it's just about making your guests comfortable and having a good experience with you all together. And it doesn't have to be showy, or it doesn't have to be picture perfect by Pinterest standards. It can just be relatable and enjoyable.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So as people, move on in life and they're hosting in their own home, kind of like you've talked about, you've been doing, how do you scale up from those like smaller, kind of more casual hodgepodge gatherings to more, I'll call it more serious entertaining, but how do you sort of elevate that as you're going through life?
Oh, absolutely. So, over time, I think it's just sort of the way that life goes, right? You're getting older, you're working, you maybe have more income available, you can, buy different things for hosting. I think a really good foundation and a first step in leveling up is really thinking about your servingware, and just a nice piece here or there, like a chafing dish, a big, nice casserole dish, and incorporating those kind of items so that your, buffet is elevated and a little bit nicer. And then, what I did was over time, I would, buy things like I have Thanksgiving plates, I have Christmas plates. Definitely didn't start off that way. I started off with just like one basic set of dishes from Target, I think. And that's what I was using for everything. And I would make those spaces look nice with things like, votive candles on tables and just try to incorporate, inexpensive little decor items. And then just over time, making sure that I'm storing those items, those nicer items that I've acquired really well, that especially those things that are seasonal so that they last over time, and just sort of here and there picking up different serving platters, things to sort of make the table look nice, and decor items along the way as well.
Yeah, just the reuse again. And I know you talked about having holiday specific dishes. And so some people love that and some people don't. I kind of go a different route. Back to the cleanup and dishwashing, I will get those plates that look like china from Sam's Club or the like. And so it looks like we're eating on really nice dishes, but they go in the trash when it's done. And that is one less thing on my plate, no pun intended.
Yes.
And I will layer those, even though they're disposable, I'll layer them on pretty chargers and oftentimes even like textured placemats and just create an interesting place setting. And so then I'm pulling out the things like the chargers and the placemats that are stored and just pull them out as I need them and use them year after year and holiday after holiday.
I absolutely love that idea. I've done that too, especially for showers and things. You can even get, there are even utensils now where you can get really nice looking disposable, like gold or colored utensils, like colored sort of plasticware that looks so good. And they're not terribly expensive. And I think I completely agree. I love that tip.
Yeah, I think there's something kind of fun about it. And again, whatever your thing is, run with it. If you're the seasonal dish person, enjoy it. If you're the person that's like, I would just rather die than have to clean the dishes, then go the disposable route. You're going to know what your vibe is and how you want to host this. We're just sharing ideas.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the most unexpected hosting tools that I found was a high top table, like a foldable high top table. Remember, you and I used to tailgate for years at UK football games, and we had those high top tables, and they were great for people just to kind of gather in conversation. They could set their drinks and their plates of food on it. And so from a tailgate perspective, it worked. But then I started using it in my home a lot and got so much use out of it there too.
Oh, I think that's just fantastic. I mean, everyone wants a place where they can, put a little plate of food down or put a drink down. And, not only is it a convenient surface for people, but it also sort of helps you control the circulation pattern of the party. And I know, everyone always ends up sort of gathering in the kitchen. I kind of prefer that people spread out throughout the house. It's just how I've always felt. So I think that's a great way to sort of control how that circulation works.
That's a good point, because the island in the kitchen does tend to be the gathering space, especially if they're trying to talk to the host. And so by having those kind of high tops where people could stand and not necessarily feel like they're leaving and going into the living room or they're sitting down, it's a way for them to still be a part of it, but not be in the like epicenter of everything happening.
Definitely.
What advice would you give for people who are planning these holidays, but they're also juggling things like parenting and work and travel and all of life's things that can get in the way and stress you out?
The more you plan going into a holiday, the better your end result's going to be and the less stressed you're going to be. And I know it takes time. I enjoy the process, but it's not uncommon for me to start in September, making my lists, who's coming this year, looking at head count, looking at where I'm going to put people, what does each of them like to bring in terms of food, planning the menu, doing all of those things. And I kind of work on a no surprises basis. So as I'm going in, like I will start for Thanksgiving, I will start the Saturday before and I will start setting tables. doing a variety of all the things that I can do, and even little things that you can do in the weeks leading up to, just to help your mental load, help you have a nice workspace. Things like cleaning out your refrigerator and freezer. It just gives you so much more peace when you're unloading all these groceries. People are bringing things over. Fridge space, is always something that's sought after in that time frame around holidays. So thinking about doing as much of that as you can just ahead of time, that's what allows you time with friends, family, to not be stressed. And it even gives you the confidence to know it's all going to get done. I have a plan for this. I'm ready for it. I know when people are arriving. And then I think also really clear communication with family. So for instance, I have our family group chat always has, in the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, here's what everyone's bringing. I make sure everyone knows. Arrive at this time, if we're going to do sort of a cocktail hour and then dinner, we're going to arrive at this time, meet at this time. And I also let people know when it's going to be, when things are going to be wrapping up too, especially say, you're a working parent, you've got kids at home, or you just want to go to bed early. It's never a bad idea to have the end time on an invitation as well.
I agree with that. That's good advice. And it's sort of a polite way to put it out there and manage people's expectations about what's to come.
Or you could do what I did several years ago, which was I ordered a banner off Amazon that just said, please leave by 9. And I hung it in my foyer. It was my immediate family.
Mm-hmm. They make it cheeky and fun, if you know the audience.
Exactly.
You're talking about fridge space, and it reminded me, I have a strong opinion on the best refrigerator freezer combo. I know this shocks you. Do you have a favorite?
I've gone back and forth on this because the odd thing is, people really kind of hate on a side by side. I actually don't mind the way that distributes things. Right now, I've got the French door, and then, in fact, we might have the same one. Or it's really similar, and then the 2 drawers underneath it. And I will say I've liked that one. I ended up doing a deeper depth instead of the counter depth. The counter depth looks so much better, but the capacity of the deeper depth was just so much greater. And I'm actually, even though I wish it looked different, I'm really glad I went that route because it's the nice deep shelves again.
Yeah, it brings back the function, not necessarily just the aesthetic side of it. I'm a hater on the side by side. I can't deal with the tall, narrow. It makes it really hard from an entertaining perspective. And as I'm prepping for like making food and ahead and putting it in. So I love a French door. And one detail about the French door that I think is so key is that the ice maker, if you have an ice maker in the door, it needs to be in the door, not in the refrigerator itself, because that big box takes up so much space. And I had a friend tell me that because she had made that mistake. And so she told me, and it's just a game changer because now you have so much shelf space. And at first I was very resistant to the French door, and now I will die on that hill.
So smart. I love that.
What's one kitchen tool or serving item that you cannot live without if you're hosting?
KitchenAid mixer.
Oh, it's been so great.
KitchenAid mixer. Yeah, I got mine as a gift from my parents years ago. It is, I mean, when I am prepping for holidays, I use it for a myriad of different things. If I'm like meal prepping and I'm making a bunch of chicken, I'll use it to shred that up. I love that usage of it. Yeah, KitchenAid mixer all the way. My youngest sister, as a hostess gift, I think last Christmas, got me an immersion blender though. And I have found so many interesting uses for that. It really is so handy if you're doing things on a stovetop, like a gravy at Thanksgiving, a soup, something that you want to kind of emulsify and smooth, and you don't want to put it in another vessel. So that's been my newest one, but KitchenAid's the cornerstone. Talking
about putting something in another vessel, that's like my cleanup hack is what can I make something in that requires as few dishes as possible so that I don't have so much to clean up when it's over.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a brilliant way to plan ahead and make life easier on yourself later.
I feel like I'm really showing my like planning psycho in this conversation. The control issues. What's your crowd pleasing go-to recipe?
Oh man. I mean, probably my favorite. I have several that I'm most proud of. I'm super proud of my Thanksgiving turkey recipe and method. So, like, related to holidays, probably that one. My biggest crowd pleaser that I make, because I don't make Host for the Holidays green beans that often. It's usually other people who will make them and tell me about it. Is what I call Caitlin potatoes on my website. That is on my Instagram. They are just a great mashed potato that you make ahead. That mashed potatoes tend to be one of those things that happen sort of right before dinner gets served. This is a make ahead. You can cook them like in a dish in the oven to warm them back up again. And it's just a fantastic recipe that everyone always loves.
Oh, that's good to know. I love mashed potatoes, but I really only eat them at Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas. That's it. Because I don't make them very often.
Well, it's a lot of work.
My kind of you just wouldn't have guessed this being a crowd pleasing, I'll call it a recipe, is a deviled egg board that I've done a few times where you just prep the eggs so they're just hollowed out, ready to go. And then there's all these different types of filling. And so people can make it however they want. There's like the traditional deviled egg filling, there's pimento cheese, there's bacon and chives and all these other things like jam that you can put in there and just doctor it up and make them as fun or as simple as you want. And I know deviled eggs can be kind of polarizing, but around here, people tend to really like them.
Love that. How fun.
Yeah, something kind of different.
Absolutely.
What about the beverage side of things? Alcoholic or non? Do you have a go-to that you serve for your folks?
I do. So I always want to make sure I'm big on a water goblet at every place setting. And my son always laughs because for years, that's always his task is he has his appointed time, usually just as guests are arriving, that he is to put ice and water in all of the glasses. That also, by the way, is a great thing that you can ask a guest to do. That's super easy. Can't mess it up. Can you fill all the water glasses, or can you hear where this is where the goblets are? Can you set one, at each place setting? So that's something that I always want to make sure is just convenient for everybody. And then, when it comes to beverages and wine, I'm big on wine, but not everyone is. So I always like to have wine pairings with whatever I have. And, I usually will keep the basics, say, vodka, gin, bourbon, but I'm not going to necessarily have a full bar, and I'll let my guests know that. So if there's something specific or something that important to them that they have that they want to bring for themselves or bring to share, that they know that ahead of time too and can really plan for it. I also think a signature cocktail is a fantastic solution. It feels festive. So, having a signature cocktail at an event is always a super fun thing to have too. It's also can be really budget friendly too. You can do a batch cocktail. It's ready all night, have it in a big pitcher that's in the fridge or is chilled all night. And everyone always loves that.
That's a good point. Am I allowed to tell the Kentucky Derby story about the batch cocktail?
Oh, of course.
So friends, I had a derby party and I had a big drink reservoir all done up with the Kentucky Oaks Lily. It's the signature drink of the Kentucky Oaks Day at Churchill Downs. I don't remember exactly what all is in it, but there is alcohol in it. And it was prepared, ready to go, lemon slices in it. People could serve themselves. And Caitlin came, and this maybe was a host fail on my part, and she poured it into her glass and then added alcohol because she thought it was just the mixer part. And so after a little bit, she was like, these drinks are really strong. And so we ended up figuring out what happened there.
Turns out I've been drinking doubles for hours. Hey, I had a great derby. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was a great party, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic.
Caitlin, where can people connect with you and find more of your tips?
On Instagram, I am at Host for the Holidays. And I would just say, if anyone ever has a question who's listening and, or they're intimidated by something, they're wondering about something, please DM me. I respond to all my DMs. I really do this because I have such a heart for hosting and a heart for helping people. And that's really all I want to do. And I will say too, I am not by any means a professional photographer. And I always joke, mediocre to poor photography, but the recipes are excellent. They're going to turn out for you every single time. And by all means, if you make something and it turns out great, post it and tag me and I'll repost it. And it's just something that's been really fun and rewarding and I love to do.
I think it's most important that it tastes good and doesn't necessarily have to be a magazine quality photo.
Well, that's good because they're not.
Well, we'll share all of that in the show notes. Thanks so much for coming on, Caitlin.
Thanks, Liz. This has been so much fun.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Here's today's house hot take. Approvals take time. Design plans and budgets don't get magically approved overnight. Between talking with your alumni board members, letting them ask questions or share opinions, gathering student feedback, and sending plans to national headquarters for approval, you may need to have several conversations before the project can be greenlighted. Build at least a month into your timeline just for approvals so that your design team or contractor aren't waiting in limbo while deadlines creep closer. I urge you to operate by the motto, better safe than sorry. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Toombs, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. On that note, I'm Liz Toombs with Sorority Chat, and I'll see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Toombs.